мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Vladimir Putin, he's everywhere right now, especially places he shouldn't be, like every single one of my social media feeds. Or, you know, the country of Ukraine. Now, the former, it's just a nuisance, but the latter, well, that's an atrocity. Now, the thing about Putin is that for about as long as that he's been in the public eye, well, the guy's been a closed book, and purposely so. I mean, what do you think they taught him up there in KGB school? After joining Russian President Boris Yeltsin's administration in 1998, well, Vladimir, he would become the prime minister the very next year before extending his appetite for power to the presidency as well. Now, Putin is once more testing every person on this planet, especially Russia's neighbor to the west. I'm talking about good old Ukraine. And this is a totally unprovoked and unnecessary ground war. Now, Putin certainly tries his damnedest to give off the impression that he's unshakably strong, but did you know that some theorists believe that he's actually suffering from a birth defect? Yeah, we've unpacked some stuff in this video that you won't be finding out anywhere else. So stay tuned to this very special Before They're Famous. Now let's get into this video.
I have to say this. Putin хуйло!
Vladimir Putin was born on October 7, 1952, which makes the man 70 years old at the time of this recording. He was born in the city of Leningrad in the USSR. Of course, these days, that city now goes by the name of St. Petersburg, and the country has returned to calling itself Russia. Now, at the time of his birth, well, Putin, he was an unremarkable child of a totally nondescript and average working class family. In fact, if we were to look up the definition of an average-looking Russian man, well, Putin, he would fit nicely into every category thanks to his non-exemplary physical stature and his willingness to simply fade into the background, especially early on in life. The former associate of Putin's who knew him in the early 90s, well, they once described him to British journalist Ben Judah in the following way. He was absolutely average man. His voice was average, not tough, not high. He had an average personality, average intelligence, not especially high intelligence. You could go out the door and find thousands of people in Russia, all of them just like Putin. But did you know that there might be a reason for the fact that Putin is so damn mediocre? Well, according to movement analyst expert Brenda L. Connors, who studies Putin's movements intensely, well, she believes that he likely suffers from a debilitating and congenital neurological deficiency that was most likely caused by a stroke that would have happened to him in utero. Yeah. Brenda believes that it was a direct result of this stroke that would prevent Putin from using the right side of his body, which is why whenever you see him walk, well, his left arm, it actually swings a lot more than his right. Digging further into her hypothesis, well, Brenda would suggest that it's unlikely Putin ever learned to crawl as a baby. Now, rather, it's far more likely that he learned to move with his entire body in a head-to-tail pattern, similar to fish or reptiles. Man, yeah, that's actually making Putin like an alien from the television series V, which is a bit of a throwback, but great show.
One of my own people tried to kill me!
Fifth column.
Okay, he's probably not an alien. In fact, if I'm being totally honest, I'll admit that the likelihood of that being true is rather slim. After all, I mean, the guy is a judo master. I mean, if you call that being a judo master, you know what I mean. Let's move on. Putin began to serve his country for the first time by joining the KGB, the Soviet-era counterpart to the CIA. Now, he worked there from the day that he graduated Leningrad State University in 1974 until the early stages of 1991. And his time there, well, it wasn't spent just working, he also learned a great deal. As a student of the higher school of the KGB, well, Putin attended university-level courses designed to teach pupils the ins and outs of the spy trade in vivid detail, especially the power of subversion and manipulation. And while Putin's ties with the KGB officially ended in the early 90s, well, it's quite likely that he continued to keep close ties with his former associates throughout the rest of his political career. Now, during his time at the KGB Academy, well, Putin would meet a flight attendant named Ludmila, and apparently he's either a huge proponent of the Mile High Club, or he simply enjoys getting discounts on air travel, because he would actually marry her soon after in 1983. Now, over the course of their marriage, well, they would have two daughters, Maria and Katerina. Now, Putin and his wife, they eventually divorced in 2013. Now, I'm not exactly sure what happened between the two of them, and with the iron grip Putin keeps on the Russian media, well, I kinda doubt anyone else knows either. But my guess, well, she underwent what she believed was going to be an ordinary procedure on her eyes, only to learn that she could actually see for the first time in her life. And when she laid eyes on Putin, well, she asked the tiny man where her husband was. But like I said, that's probably just a bit of fan fiction. And then there are also rumors that Putin may have fathered another child with former Russian gymnastics champion Alina Kabayeva. But I'm gonna call a little BS on that. As a gymnast, her eyes, they must have always worked properly. No way a woman that gorgeous would fall for a bridge troll. Anywho, by 1994, Putin had become the deputy mayor of the city of his birth, and 4 years after that, he'd be named the director of the FSB, which was the KGB's domestic successor. Then things began happening really fast. So fast, in fact, that it's almost suspicious. Now, in 1999, Putin, he was named Prime Minister of Russia. The following year, he'd become the most powerful person in the country when he was elected president. And Putin, well, he's remained in power ever since. By all accounts, Putin's early years as the Russian president, they didn't exactly paint him as a colossus. Now, he was easily impressed by the might of the American empire, and he awed by, of all people, George Bush. Seriously, I'm talking about this guy. Now, Putin was also perceptive of how limited his domestic power was. Now, for decades, Russian power had been wielded by barrel-chested generals who had cut their teeth as brilliant strategists. Now, Putin, he was about as far away from that as you can get. 2003 would become a turning point in his career. That's when he finally worked up the nerve to outwardly abuse his political power for the first time and arrest Mikhail Khodorkovsky, the country's richest man. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. Come on, I'm an Irish guy. What do you want from me? After he got away with that, with barely a word spoken from the media and no uprise from the people, well, Putin began to test the limits of his power even further. And before long, well, he discovered that there weren't any. On October 7, 2006, otherwise known as Putin's 54th birthday, well, a Russian journalist named Anna Politkovskaya, who had exposed the corruption of the Russian army and its conduct in Chechnya, was shot to death in her apartment building. Now, afterwards, well, Putin, he would be accused by international media outlets for not doing enough to protect the country's independent media. Now, for his own part, well, Putin, he would simply concentrate on the fact that her death, well, it caused the government more problems than her investigation ever did.
Что журналисты должны это знать, во всяком случае эксперты это прекрасно понимают. Степень у нее влияния на политическую жизнь в стране, в России, была крайне незначительна.
For the next decade, Putin would continue to consolidate his grip of power over Russia by transforming its courts, its media, and other government institutions to serve the needs of himself and himself alone. Now, he's not only spent a metric crap ton of military advances, now he's also banned or jailed damn near anyone who's ever had the strength or character to oppose him politically, or the bravery to investigate him as a journalist. Hell, he's even officially changed Russia's constitution so that he can theoretically remain in power until at least 2036. Now, because of this political longevity, well, Putin, he's seen 5 US presidents come and go. I mean, all right, technically speaking, he hasn't seen Joe Biden leave yet, but come on. Who do you think Vegas has bets on staying in power longer, Putin or Biden? That's what I thought. According to most reports, the only individual that even has a hope of rivaling Putin as a politician is Alex Navalny, a Moscow-based digital populist whom, surprise, surprise, well, the Kremlin, they have put under various arrests. But without a doubt, Putin's most horrendous crimes are those he committed on human rights against other nations, the wars he's launched in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Crimea, and most recently, Ukraine.
Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима.
Ukraine has aspired to join the NATO military alliance for years now, seeking to lean towards the democracies of the European Union after establishing itself as a nation in the wake of the USSR's dissolution of the early 90s. Now, ever since then, well, Ukraine has understandably looked to cement itself in its own culture and ideological destiny. The only problem is, well, Vladimir Putin, he isn't willing to allow them the opportunity to do so. Not only does Putin not want Ukraine within 3 feet of any NATO alliance, he's not even willing to give them the respect of autonomy. As far as he's concerned, the Ukraine is an illegitimate country that exists on land that is historically Russian.
Итак, начну с того, что современная Украина целиком и полностью была создана Россией.
Чёртова брата и самого Люцифера, секретарь!
For close to a decade, while Putin and his government, they have supported separatist rebels in Ukraine's Donbass region, and then over the past weeks, he's escalated things a whole lot further, invading the country itself. This unprovoked attack on a peaceful nation has the entire world in an uproar and wondering what the hell is Putin thinking. In fact, even inside of his very own country, 62% of Russians are wondering what their world leader is about to kick off. Is it going to be World War III? Well, that's according to a survey taken by the Levada Center.
Скажи туда Путину спасибо.
Спасибо.
Ты молодец, Володь. Мы именно этого и хотели, и ждали от тебя. У нас теперь есть где жить. Ты царь и бог.
Зато
Мы в
тепло
Харькове.
зимой.
Look, how all this winds up is simply too far beyond the scope of our series and what we do here to accurately surmise. But the hope is that Putin, he comes to his senses sooner rather than later. Then again, if his history is anything to go by, well, that's unlikely to happen. So here's hoping that before things escalate totally out of control, that Putin suffers a stroke, and at this time, well, it finishes the job that Mike tried to start in the womb. Shh. Hope you got that one. Alright guys, we're going to wrap up this video here. It was a long one, but this is a very important topic, and it touches close to home. A few members of our staff are from Ukraine, and obviously they are just heartbroken and devastated what's happening to their homeland. So we put in the effort to kind of piece this together, to let others know who this guy is, why he's such an asshole, and anyway, let's all leave Stand With Ukraine in the comments down below if you're still watching. Alright, see you guys in another video. Boom!